Hello, this is George with the Diabetic Review, and today I will be reviewing the OmniPod, which is the insulin pump from the Insulet Corporation. As you all may have seen, I've had diabetes for about 20 years, and I've been using pumps for a good portion of that, for about 15 years. So I've used four different insulin pumps, three of which have your standard tube, going from the pump itself all the way to the infusion set that comes on either your stomach or your thigh or your arm. But as you see, I wear a suit, wear a tie every day, and so a lot of times I would run into issues with the tubing. And so that's one thing that really attracted me to the OmniPod device, the fact that it just has a separate device that stays on your skin, which this is the pod right here. This is the casing that you get before you set it up. You can see how thin it is. It's relatively thin. It sticks up, maybe half an inch, which does okay. And I'd say when I was on it for about a week or two, that first little bit, I would run into issues with changing clothes or turning the corner around, around a doorway, and having it either rip off my arm or rip off my leg, which that gets pretty frustrating because there is no way to readdress that exact same pod. As soon as it's ripped off, it is then it's then trash, essentially, and unfortunately. I believe that is something that OmniPod is going to be working on down the road, but I don't know of it coming to the market anytime soon. I've had this device for about 13, 14 months. I'd say I like it pretty good. As I gave the Dexcom 7 Plus a grading scale from 1 to 10, I would have to give the OmniPod out of 10, maybe a 7. Pretty much all the positives coming from the fact that there's no tubing, which is nice. And the device itself actually has this pod that carries 200 units of insulin. It has a chip in it that will remember the basal rate. If you've got different insulin settings from the mornings to the afternoons to nighttime, it will remember that. If you were to have forgotten this receiver, it's essentially a remote for it. If you can leave it in your car. A lot of times I'll leave this here in my office if I've got to go to the other side of the office, or if I got to meet a client somewhere. And if I had forgotten it, I'll still be getting that basal rate insulin that I had preset, which is nice. One thing that I will say with this device is it is very fidgety. And what I mean by that is, for anyone who's had experience with infusion sets, whether it be with a Medtronic device or a Deltec Cosmo, which is an insulin pump I used to have, the infusion sets, the tubing, which actually delivers the insulin itself, I've found on the OmniPod is very sensitive. It's not quite as durable as I would like it to be for me, and I don't know how that may or may not differ from other people's review of it or feedback from it. But myself, I'm not a terribly ripped guy, but I'm also not filled with fat. So I know that it's with the muscle coming into play with the tubing, it will often create an error, kind of like an occlusion error, where the insulin has been, the delivery of it has been affected, which is something that's very frustrating, because when that error comes up, there's no way to override it to keep that pod still on you, even if you feel like you're still getting insulin. It will then give you a nice high-pitched beep and tell you that you have to change it. We'll say when you do change it, I've figured out a way to actually salvage some of the insulin. So if you still had 100 units or so left in that pod, that does not have to go to waste. You can still get a good portion of that insulin out of the pod, which is through the same means that you actually delivered the insulin into it before you put it on your skin. I will say also with this kind of remote device, the sensor, I believe they refer to it as the PDM. It's fairly thick, and it doesn't feel like it should be. It's a lot lighter than the other devices I have. And as I'll also compare my Dexcom 7 Plus, it's about the same width, but it's much smaller. Well, not much smaller now that I'm looking at it, but this feels like they did a good job of trying to fit it in the smallest absolute possible as they dimensions as they could, whereas this feels like it's taking up more space than it really needs to, which for a lot of girls is not going to be an issue, because a lot of times y'all aren't going to be putting it in your pocket. You'll just put it in your purse. But for me, whether it be my suit or jeans, whatever it may be, I don't like having that much sticking in my pocket. The other, one of the biggest issues that I have with the OmniPod is that its error messages, it's always beeps. There is no function for it to vibrate, which I'm not sure of. I know the other device currently that is tubeless is the My Solo device. I'm not sure if that has a vibration option or not, but it's unfortunately the only electronic device between my phone, the Dexcom, and the insulin pump. It's the only one that does not have a vibration option, which certainly came into play when I was at a wedding, and there was an error message, and it gave a long, high-pitched tone that I was so new to the device I didn't know how to turn it off. So I had to leave during the vows of the wedding, which was pretty comical. But you know, again, it is a the pod itself is pretty durable. The adhesive that it comes with does a pretty good job. If you're active playing sports, I would recommend either getting a band, whether it be a sweatband. I've even used duct tape before when I didn't have anything else to keep it on my skin, because I had not gotten an error message yet, but I knew that I was I was sweating a lot and that it would be easy for it to rip out or slip off, and so I wanted to secure it while I still had time left of using it before it expired. And to that point, another thing with this device is that it will no way let you use it for longer than 48 hours. As soon as the pod expires, you're pretty much going to have to change it right then and there, which can be frustrating. But a lot of times with other pumps or other devices, you're able to kind of take your time. If it, I remember with my Deltec Cosmo, I may have a side in for 3-4 days. A couple times even 5 days, even though they recommended it not to be that long. But with this device, you will not have that kind of freedom or flexibility. But all in all, they've made pretty steady progress with their devices. I have read that these pods, they're actually in the works of actually making it a lower profile, so that way it doesn't stick so high up, which is going to make the biggest difference for when I wear it on my arm. Right now, my pod is on my upper thigh, so I'll wear the pod right up here, and then I have my Dexcom 7 Plus device on my other upper thigh, and I will rotate it between my thighs, both sides of my stomach, and both of my arms. Again, one of the biggest reasons that I went with the OmniPod as soon as the Deltec Cosmo went out of business was that it was a lot less expensive up front. I remember with my diabetic educator when we went through the different devices and the pros and cons and the price differences, including the insurance coverage, was pretty significant up front. As a lot of you all may know, the wholesale, the retail value of a lot of insulin pumps can be $5,000, $6,000. But with the OmniPod, it was significantly less. I don't remember the exact figure. But the issue would be the ongoing costs are a lot higher. The pods, when you've got to throw away a pod every 48 hours, they get pretty expensive. I believe the actual retail value of each pod is $40 a pop, which is expensive. And then even with insurance, if insurance is covering $30, that's still $10 per pod every 2 days. So that can add up. So I really went with the OmniPod to kind of buy time until there was either a better device from a competitor or until Insulet came out with a newer version of it. And as I've mentioned in a previous video, a review of the Dexcom 7 Plus, Dexcom and OmniPod are in talks right now of combining the two devices, so that way it's, instead of me having both devices, it would just be one that communicates to both the sensor to check my blood sugar as well as the pod that delivers the insulin. So that would be great. I don't know yet what the time frame is on that. Certainly the sooner the better. But I'd say all in all, for someone who's really aggravated a lot with the tubing of an insulin pump, the OmniPod is certainly a good route to take. But someone who may feel like the tubing may be an issue, I would certainly recommend speaking with a diabetic educator in your area that could let you use one for a week. I know that I did that with the device, and I did realize I would have issues with it, but it wasn't a deal breaker. So I think for any of you all or any of the parents considering the OmniPod, to try it out for at least a week to see how it goes. And as soon as, like I was referring to in the first couple weeks, as soon as I recognized where it was on my body, it hasn't been an issue with it ripping out when I take my shirt off if it's on my arm, or walking through a tight doorway. I'm very conscious of where it is so it doesn't get ripped out. The sales support at OmniPod has been pretty good. I don't have any real big great testimony or nor negative. So it's as expected. Nothing's been really mind-blowing for me with OmniPod or the Insulet Corporation, but I still have my hopes up and do believe that the Insulet Corporation is working hard at always either improving their device or incorporating a new device, like incorporating the Dexcom CGM as well. But I do want you all to submit any questions or any comments that you may have on my diabetic review site and my channel. So if I've addressed something that you'd like to hear more about, or if there's something that I completely missed over, please let me know, and I would like to address that for you either in a comment or a response or in my next video. So please subscribe to me and submit all questions. Thanks so much, and hope you all have a great day.